Hi. In the second video in this series, I will continue to share with you my exploration of NLP hypnotherapy and meditation. In the previous video, I told you about dynamic meditation and some of the factors that led to my first out-of-body experience. In this video, I want to share with you what I learned about psychic skills, hypnosis and NLP back in the early days. So in 1984, I took Sannyas and joined up with the Orange people in Fremantle, Western Australia. Jessie Green, an American psychologist who was a member of the group, delivered a weekly class on psychic skills. She had recently moved from the US to Australia, soon after completing an NLP Practitioner Training with Richard Bandler in the US. So let me set some pre-frames. Our primary interest was in meditation and personal development. We practiced our psychic skills not because we wanted to be New Age tarot readers, but because we wanted to use our psychic skills to explore consciousness. And then with that foundation, Jessie introduced me to NLP and then to hypnosis. So that introduction may be quite different to how others entered into the field of NLP. Anyway, I was so captivated by NLP that I bought all the early books by Richard Bandler, John Grinder, Stephen, Conrad Andreas, Robert Dilts, and others. I still have them. But let's focus on the psychic skills training for a bit. If you've ever watched some of my previous videos, you would know that I'm quite logical and rational, and that I don't get into airy-fairy stuff. So stay with me. So what we would do is sit around in a circle. We sit around in a circle on the floor, about 8 to 10 of us. Then we would choose one person to do a reading on. The rest of us would tune into that person, and then in turn we would share our psychic pickup, intuition, insight, whatever you would like to call it. We called it a psychic pickup. Now, each person would do it differently. Some would talk in visual terms, other in auditory terms, others were more kinesthetic. And then depending upon the person's personality type and cognitive functions, they would express and interpret the information differently. I hope I'm not losing you. Now, you know there is different personality types, right? The Myers-Briggs is probably the best known personality typing tool. You can follow it back to Jung and then back to China. The main cognitive functions are introversion and extroversion, intuition and sensing, thinking and feeling, and judging and perceiving. You can read more about those on my website. So we would all sit around and tune into one person, then each person would share their pickup. It was amazing because not only did it give us a more rounded understanding of the other person and at the same time benefit the person being read, but it also enabled us to tune into aspects of ourselves and develop our less used cognitive functions. So, are you interested in learning how to do a psychic reading? Okay, so we start with the premise that you have a biocomputer. A biocomputer is a tool and interface with which you can communicate and tap into the power of your unconscious mind and much more. So imagine for a moment that you have a biocomputer. It has a visual screen, a sound card, a microphone, and you can physically type in commands. Every command you input will get an outcome, which will be outputted either in the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory modalities. The output will tend to be in your preferred representational system, that is visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Now, my pickups are either in pictures and videos or in a voice. The key to using the biocomputer successfully is to be able to put your mind aside, and this is where regular practice of a meditation is enormously useful. So start by relaxing the body, blanking out your visual screen, and quieting down, softening, and having your internal dialogue support rather than hinder you. The next step is to move from focusing on internally generated thoughts, what we call in, to being receptive to input from the outside of yourself, out. This is also known as uptime or being in sensory awareness to your environment. Now, awareness and judicial use of your biocomputer gives you much more control over what is going on in your mind and body than you may have thought possible. Every program you consciously or unconsciously input into your biocomputer will get an outcome. For example, if you say to yourself, "This won't work," then the outcome will be that either it doesn't work or you'll find yourself in a mental state where you're closed and unreceptive to the fact that it could or maybe it is working. Also, if you input sloppy programs, you will get sloppy outcomes. This is what can happen to people who do ill-formed goal setting. They get ill-formed results. So you need to be very clear about what you're doing inside of your mind. It runs 24 hours a day. And it's your mind, so you might as well get it working for you rather than against you. And when I work with a client, I talk about helping them get from the back seat into the driver's seat of their life. And part of that is the conscious use of questions, statements, and commands. Now, the biocomputer is used in psychic work for exploring maps of consciousness, doing energy readings and psychic pickups. In the initial stages, practicing with simple exercises helps you to clearly identify the subtle responses and outcomes. Every state of consciousness, including the one you're in now, can be mapped and described. And as soon as you describe your state, you can start moving with awareness into various altered states. The next step is to notice how your state changes when you tune into another person, and this is the key to tracking energy and doing accurate psychic pickups. So let's go through the psychic reading procedure. 1, relax. So just sit in your best meditation posture and move into peripheral sensing in all modalities, that is visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. 2, center yourself. Bring your awareness down into your belly and your pelvis. 3, expand. Sense that you can touch the walls and ceilings with your hands, back and the back of your head. 4, own the space. Allow yourself to be full of space to expand and to encompass everything in the vicinity. 5, uptime. Put in a command to be in sensory awareness to the object of the pickup. 6, tune in. So you input a clear, specific command into your biocomputer. For example, to tune into the first dimension. And 7, trust. Trust that what you're now sensing in VAKOG, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, is the pickup. And 8, verbalize. So verbalize your experience in the present tense. Now, typically the first aspect of your pickup will be like the first scene from a movie, the first note from a song, or the first line from a story, or the first step on a path. And once you start describing it, the story will unfold. Now, at first this can be a little difficult because you're building new synaptic connections in the brain. But with practice, it becomes easier. So once you're given the command to tune in, then you trust that what you say will be the pickup. And I tell you, it works. It's part of the procedure that I use for exploring memories around the birth and past life memories. Anyway, the information tends to come fairly complete within a few seconds. And this is also how a number of famous artists, composers, and writers have related how they receive their inspiration. The pickup usually comes quickly and easily. However, the challenging part is translating the symbolism or getting it down onto paper. Now, learn to trust, because if you start doubting, then the doubting thoughts will be the program going into your biocomputer. Hence, you will get a doubtful response. And with your biocomputer, you can explore any state of consciousness imaginable. You can go to Atlantis, for example. You can go to fairyland. You do accurate energy readings and psychic pickups and track clients through bodywork sessions and much more. Now, some years ago, I asked a friend to take note of where she would be at 12 p.m. on a certain day. I told her that I would tune into the location at the time. Now, I got some obscure shapes and pictures in my mind. There was a sail shape, then also an image of a bridge over a creek. And it turns out she was at Elephant Rock Cafe, which is on the beach in Currumbin on the Gold Coast. And the building has 2 levels, and it has the sales structures, which in retrospect made sense. I also asked my friend to give me the map coordinates of 3 places in the world, just the numbers. I tuned into the first, and I got a shape which I drew on paper. I also got images of large ships docked at a wharf. And it turned out that the shape was the same as a piece of coastline in northern Europe. It's that little bit like that. And it's with those map coordinates. Anyway, the next set of map coordinates gave me the images of a desert location somewhere in Australia, and that was correct. I got that one right. But the next one was weird. I got images of being deep under the ocean with images of a large shark. It was really scary. And I think it was the last time I actually did this. And when I checked the map, I found that the location was off the coast of South Africa. So if you're interested in developing your psychic skills, I'll give you a form exercise to get some practice in using your biocomputer. What we do is explore dimensional states. So starting with the first dimension, then explore the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I know other people go to high dimensions, but those 5, for me it's functionality, all right? It just works. So tuning into dimensional states is useful for becoming familiar with your biocomputer, recognizing the shifts in consciousness, and learning to expand your energy. When exploring any psychic state, look for shifts in boundaries, colors, identity, feelings, your heart, personality, and height. And it's important to note that you cannot understand this intellectually. It has to be an experiential exploration from within the dimensional state. So imagine that you've got a biocomputer. 1, sit in your best meditation posture, move into peripheral sensing. 2, center yourself. 3, get the sense that you can expand and touch the walls and ceilings with your hands, back, front, and head. 4, own the space. 5, be in uptime, be in sensory awareness. 6, tune in, input a specific command into your biocomputer, for example, to tune into the first dimension. And 7, trust that what you are now sensing in visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory is the pickup. 8, verbalize your experience in the present tense. So the command that you input to your biocomputer is, and you can do this now, tune into the first dimension. Hit the enter key and then take note of the visual and auditory thoughts that arise in the mind. Take note of how you feel and then verbalize your experience. So the first dimension, and you should find that the first dimension is like a tiny dot. It's solid, it has a tightness around the heart, a feeling of contraction, there's a tightness in the forehead for me. The head is sunken. It's like the sight is focused in on a tiny detail. It has a false clarity about it. It has a narrow focus, like a straw, one corridor. You know, you can kill for what you want in this space. There's no other. People can go into this when threatened, and rocks and minerals are one-dimensional. There's a timelessness or slowness about it. And I think this is the space that some homeless people experience. Life is just about survival. It's not friendly. No space for emotions. Vulnerability is covered up with aggression, fear of other, need to be on guard, fangs bared. And then I always get images like of night, a campfire, and the group is together out of a need for survival, shelter and food. The individual is contracted, and it's not safe to expand without provoking the other. There's no tomorrow, only now. So as I go through this is my pickup. This is how I actually interpret my pickup, the images and the thoughts that I get, all right? So how you do it will be different, but there will be a similarity between how you do it, my pickup and yours. Okay, now the reality is that the first and second dimensions are not that comfortable. But the idea is that by tuning into them, you get a sense of what it is like to be in the first and second dimension. Then you move into the third dimension, it begins to feel better. Then as you move to the fourth and to the fifth, you begin to get a sense of where those who live in a high state of consciousness may be coming from. Anyway, at one of my classes, I gave the instructions to tune into the first dimension. And then I heard one of the participants say in his mind, I don't like being here. This does not feel good. I want to leave. And when I asked for people's pickup, this guy said those exact words and wanted to leave the class. Huh? So I had to work really hard to get him to tune into the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth dimension. Then he was good. But geez, it was hard work. And so this is the importance of not identifying with your state. Don't identify with the state. You've got to develop awareness of how your state shifts and then look for what actually triggered the shift in your state. This is about being consciously aware. All right? So now we get to the second dimension. So once you have an experience of the uncomfortableness of the first dimension, you add a dimension to get to the second dimension. So just input into your biocomputer, type it in, add a dimension, tune into the second dimension. Then hit the enter key and then report what comes to mind. And you should find that it's flat, but easier to breathe in the first dimension. The tightness in the forehead begins to relax. People are like cardboard cutouts, very much like medieval Europe, where attention was on finery and possessions. And this dimension is very much about structure and order, which allowed the Europeans to colonize the New World. In the second dimension, the other exists. With structure, you get a class system. There are morals, punishment, jealousy, but no heart. There's a separation of sense of self and other. Colors are muted, like watching TV or computer-generated imagery and cartoons. There are two corridors, and there's a need to be in control. There's boundaries, not losing yourself. There's me and the other. There's separation. You get the front of the body, but not the back of the body. There's no emotions. This is like the plant kingdom. Now, there's more space than the first dimension. It's safer. There's you and the other. There's more light. It's daytime. It's more self-sufficient and doesn't rely upon the group for survival, but relies upon group to fulfill needs. The group work together to exploit others, something like the center of the universe. So now we get to the third dimension. All right, you still with me? So once you have a sense of the second dimension, then you input a command into your biocomputer to add a dimension, and you tune in to the third dimension. And you should find that with the third dimension, that the back of the body comes into awareness, there's a group consciousness comes in, the other exists. You can breathe a lot easier. Emotions come in here, there's heart, there's vulnerability, and a need for security to protect emotions. There's empathy, there's relatedness, there's helping the other, and awareness of another person's pain and your own pain. There's a sense of moving into the world. The group is together out of humaneness, a need to band together as humans. Now, at the third dimension, there is the power of positive thinking and self-awareness, but not yet the ability to conceive of the fifth dimension. There are limitations, politics and concerns with what other people might think. Those at the third learn to set goals for the first time, but the goal setting is done by the conscious mind. Third dimensional consciousness is horizontal. It's not yet vertical. There's an identification with the body, mind, and emotions. And with a bit of practice, you can fine-tune your pickup and tune into the low level of the third dimension, the mid-level, and the top level. So let's look at the low third. So at the low third, you're totally identified with mind. Being a victim, an outside authority defines your reality and survival in the world. Change happens out of extreme circumstances. Now the mid-third is the arrogant stage. Prove it to me, that your way of reality is it. An awareness that thoughts create reality. There's wanting to understand consciousness. A frustration, but direction is from outside. Then we get to the high third. The high third is about affirmations. and awareness of the unconscious mind and its influence. Problems stem from childhood. Control is given to and defined by an outside authority. The heart's opening, the strong emotions, easily influenced, often off center, learning from mistakes, recognizing patterns, but still involved with dysfunctional and insensitive people. And then you're following this through for the first, second, and third. You're following it through. Have you been like this in the past, or do you know people like this? All right. So now we get to the fourth dimension. So once you have a sense of the third dimension, you input a command into your biocomputer to tune into the fourth dimension. And you should find that time comes into play. Past, present, and future all seem to exist at once. I get thoughts of Einstein. There's versatility, timelessness. There's no personality. Only essence is essential. It's very light. It's like karmic, past lives, boundaries. There's dissolving, there's fairies, there's infinity, there's like levitation, sense of flying. There's no personality, no relationship. Accessing this space is perfect for organizing your business. A sense of travel, I get a sense of travel, going somewhere yet nowhere. Aloneness comes in. That's aloneness, not loneliness. Revisiting a place, completing what one wanted to do the first time. All right, it's the karmic thing. Completing things, getting it right this time. Now, in the fourth dimension, there's a feeling of vastness, spaciousness. Security is not so important. There is the healing of people and the planet, trusting your intuition and psychic abilities. You can create your own reality. From the fourth, you can feel the truth of the fifth. There's more. And that's all that you really need. You need to know that there's more. Keeps you moving. We get self-awareness workshops, spirituality, the idea that you choose your parents. Life is an education. There's lessons to learn. There's teachers and students. There's consciousness. Mission statements and goal setting is more from the unconscious mind. Now let's look at the low fourth. So there's like an awareness of past lives come in. Psychic phenomena. Problems stem from karma. Not that karma is what happened in a past life, but it's just like it's your past. It's your history. And what do they say? What goes around comes around. You've got to fix that so you can move on. And there are gurus and extreme behavior, a denial of the material world, focus on the spiritual, self-responsibility comes in here. There's catharsis and the belief that you need to really relive the pain to heal. And then we get to the mid-fourth. This is less influenced by outside authority. You follow your inner self, manifesting things. Morality still exists. There's saving the planet. There's focus on what is wrong in the world and how to heal it. Higher self is coming in. Then we get to the high fourth. Now there's running workshops rather than participating as a student. Now looking for truths, becoming aware of half-truths. No longer a student, sharing understandings and wisdom. And then we get to the fifth. So once you have a sense of the fourth dimension, you input a command into your biocomputer to tune into the fifth dimension. Hit the enter key, and what are the thoughts that arise in the mind? Now, if you're still here watching this, obviously you are because you listen to me, then if you just go back through the video, just reflect on this video and notice how I have changed. How I've changed, like my volume, tonality, tempo, my inflection pauses, all that sort of has changed and softened as I've moved from the first up to the fifth. You notice that? So, tells you something, all right? Tells you something. So in the fifth, I get images of extraterrestrials. aliens, God, channeling, interplanetary consciousness. And the fifth dimension encompasses all of your energy in every dimension. There's a larger framework. Now, you're not hooked into saving the planet at the fifth. The planet's evolving. Maybe this is the revolution. Maybe this is the evolutionary process of the planet. There's more accepting of what is. There's more accepting of what is. There's less judgment. No judgment. There's accepting of what is. There's no problems. There's just outcomes. There's telepathy. And it's a nice space to hang out in. Now at the fifth, you have Buddhahood. This is where I am a master. I'm a master, you know. There's no beliefs. There's frames of mind and there's thoughts that you have, but are they functional? Do they serve you? Do your thoughts serve you or not? If not, then you just change the thoughts. Follow it? And you're disidentified with the body, mind, and emotions. So you don't say I. You don't use I statements so much as you talk about the body. You know, you talk about the body. There's the mind, body, and emotions, and you have this pure witnessing consciousness, which is aware of the body, mind, and emotions. And at the fifth, there's your personal system. You have a personal system of morality. It's not about somebody else's morality. So if someone says, do you believe in this? Or do you believe in God? Or do you believe in this? It's got nothing to do with it. It's got nothing to do with belief. It's nothing to do with belief. It's really hard to explain. It's like, say with God, it's hard to explain. You can't even say that God's an understanding. You can't even really say God's a knowingness. It's really hard to explain. It's hard to put some of these things into words. So when someone says, for example, do you believe in God? It's like, where are they coming from? Which level are they at? Because no one at the fifth would actually say that. That sounds like someone who's down at level 3 or something, you know. Okay, let's get back in. So now we get, there's more of a trusting in existence. There's a trust. There's a trust in existence. So there's existence, there's trust in God, there's a trust in nature, there's a trust in life, right? That this is the only moment that you have, and you trust in this moment. And you're trusting what's out of conscious awareness. So at the fifth, you can handle paradoxes. Things are just the way they are. It's just the way they are. And it's just the way they are, all right? Different people in the world. Just the way it is. Stop judging. No one's really better or lower than another. And you also realize that you've never really been in control of anything. You know, thoughts just arise. Thoughts arise in the mind. You can't think consciously. You can be conscious of your thoughts. You can consciously direct your thoughts, but all the thoughts are doing is arising out of the unconscious mind. And life just happens. Life just happens. Life flows through you. And there's lovers and there's friends and spouses sometimes. There's experiences. You know, there's people, things, activities, and experiences. They just move in and out of life. They move in and out of life. And notice I didn't say out of your life. It's just like you take the ego out. It's just move in and out of life. There's no attachment. Life's perfect, no matter what's happening. Whether you're having a shitty day or not, life's perfect, all right? And learning happens and understandings arise. Learning happens and understandings arise. And this is illustrated in the story of Mojud, the man with the inexplicable life, if you've ever read that story. Anyway, at the fifth, there's doing what has to be done without judgment. Just that this is the situation. Experiences are here and now, acting more from impulse with awareness. Experiences of ecstasy and devas, channeling, vision comes from within, not created by the conscious mind. And an acceptance that I'm a rose, or I'm a wildflower. All right, I'm a little piece of grass, or I'm a huge great oak tree. It's an acceptance. There's no judgment or resentment that one's higher or lower than the other. At the fifth dimension, you discover that consciousness has a vertical dimension. Meditation and spirituality, it's vertical, not horizontal. And at the fifth, you are the spiritual master in your own right. The fifth has the largest frame that encompasses all others. There is a yes to existence. Nothing is fixed. Everything is in transition. Nothing is a noun. Everything is a verb. Everything is a process. All right? And your identity is continually expanding. Now at the fifth, you work from your own inner knowing. The witness is fairly well developed here. Chopping wood, carrying water, no outside authorities, no moral system. Truth is the highest value. So how to practice? First of all, I'd like to say, wow, you're here. That's fantastic. That's great. So to make it easy for you, I've also posted the transcript of this video on my website. So then you can read through and get all the instructions. Makes it easy for you. And if you don't have a group of people to play with, then find one person to work with. Ask them to give you a set of map coordinates. Tune into the map coordinates and use Google Earth to check your pickup. Have different friends take note of where they are at specific places and times for 15 minutes. Tune in, then give them a call to learn the location. If possible, visit the location to see how accurate your pickup was. Remember to stay in sensory-based awareness and don't mind read and project onto others. I don't like it when a psychic tells someone that the reason they have a certain problem is that in this life is because something that happened to them in a past life. That's not useful. Don't tell people about their past lives or what happened to them as a child or what others think of them. That doesn't empower the other person. Show the other person how to do it for themselves. And if you want to identify the root cause of a problem, use Tad James's NLP questioning procedure. If you could trust your unconscious mind to know the root cause of the problem, would that be before, during, or after your birth? And then keep on asking binary questions until you identify the first event. It only takes a few minutes. So your intention should always be to teach people how to get from the back seat into the driver's seat of their life. So please don't be a guru. Be the one who empowers the other person to think for themselves. And to close this video, I would like to share with you a few relevant psychic experiences. Now, in the late 80s, in Perth at Port Beach, I was walking along the sand with my girlfriend, Natasha. In my mind, I said, let's run. And Natasha said out loud, okay, and she started running. Some years later on the Gold Coast, the thought arose one evening that 2 Jehovah's Witnesses women would knock on my door early Sunday morning. So I made an effort to get up early and finish my breakfast so that I could invite them in for a discussion. And sure enough, 2 beautiful young women knocked on my door, but I was still eating breakfast. So I didn't feel comfortable inviting them in, and I missed out on the discussion. On another occasion, I was addressing a meditation class. I gave my introduction, and then I heard a number of voices in my mind, all at one time. I think my introduction may have been a bit challenging for them. So I repeated back what I had heard 5 people in the group say in their minds, and their jaws dropped, one by one, as I told them what I had heard. And in another class, I gave instructions for the vastness meditation. And as the participants closed their eyes, I also followed the instructions that I had given them. And this is what I wrote down. It's on my website, in my diary. So I tried reaching into the space in front of me with my physical body, but it didn't feel right. Obviously because the physical body is designed to explore physical space. I then explored the space with my mind, but it still felt limited. But when I began to explore the vast space around me with my heart, the experience became profound. At first, exploring the space in front of me felt ecstatic, similar to that of sexual orgasm. I then felt as if I was moving rapidly forwards over a long grassy field towards some hills. The feeling of ecstasy changed to a feeling of dying. I then felt as if I had entered heaven or I touched the face of God. As I said, that experience is on my website somewhere. There's a lot of experiences on my website if you're interested, have a look. So thank you for sharing this space with me, and please leave your comments below. If you have any questions, I will try and answer them. And if you've not done so, please join us over at the NLP Hypnotherapy group on Facebook, where you have the opportunity to make posts and interact with like-minded people. All the best to you, and I look forward to seeing you again.